Hello and welcome back to another season of the Caterham Motorsport Championships. Finally, the wait is over and we return to racing action at the scenic Cadwell Park circuit in Lincolnshire. This is one of the most challenging circuits in the country, but it's a challenge that the drivers will relish as they aim to start their championship campaigns in style. And with conditions set to be near perfect all weekend, we should be in for the usual spectacular action out on track. All of the Caterham Championships are racing here this weekend, but first up we can bring you the action from the Caterham 7 UK Championship and the 7 310Rs. So, drivers lining up then on the grid ahead of the first race of the season. Always an exciting moment this. On board here with Matt Shepherd, who lines up second in the 310Rs. Just ahead of him is James Murphy, who we also ride on board with. He is the class pole sitter, but ahead of us are the Caterham 7 Championship UK entrants, at the head of which is John Byrne, the reigning champion. He starts on pole position then for round one of the championship, which gets underway. John Byrne gets away well, but Henry Heaton goes nowhere from the second row of the grid. The number 10 car sends other drivers scattering in avoidance. He has got going, Heaton, I think, but well down in the middle of the 310R field, so not quite sure what happened there. There he goes, look, the blue number 10 car already trying to make forward progress, but that was not in the script for one of the pre-race favourites. So all through the first couple of corners safely. These are some of the most experienced Caterham drivers in the country. These are the top two tiers of the Caterham Motorsport ladder. So many of these drivers have been competing in Caterhams for quite some time now. They're showing that experience with a generally clean start. John Byrne leads the way. Gordon Sawyer, the reigning 310R champion, is second. Someone's off though in amongst the front runners, and that allows James Murphy through. Our 310R pole sitter makes one of the easiest overtakes that he'll make all day long. It's a pretty difficult place to overtake at Cadwell Park. This is one of the best spots down at the bottom of the hill at Mansfield, and no surprises really, but Henry Heaton is the one trying to take advantage of that, and he does so. Goes up the inside of Jake Swan-Dixon there, so he's already back amongst the front runners, having fallen into the 310R pack at the start. He's made good progress around the first half a lap, leaps over the top of the mountain. Such a spectacular place to go and watch racing, and Heaton, in fact, I think is into a sixth place now as we come towards the end of lap number one. Kicks up one of the floppy markers there through the wall bends. That won't do any damage, but you're, strictly speaking, not supposed to be going anywhere near them. They are there to denote the edge of the track. You're not supposed to be exceeding that. Back on board with James Murphy then. The 103 car started on pole position in the 310Rs. At the end of lap number one then, they streak through across the start-finish line. We are back in business in 2020 with a typically frenetic first lap of racing action. Up towards the first corner they go. I do sense there's a little bit of trepidation from some drivers, others though not afraid to get stuck in there. There were a pair of cars running side by side into the first corner. Coppice, that's not a place that you really want to be going wheel to wheel, but for all of these drivers, or most of them at least, it will be their first competitive racing action of the season, and after such an extended off-season, there may be a bit of race rustiness amongst a few of them, so I think a lot of drivers will be keen just to get this first race under their belt. The last thing you want to do, having been sat around waiting for so long to get underway this year, is wreck the car in the first race of the year. At the front of the field though, some serious racing going on. John Byrne has got Gordon Sawyer right behind him. Sawyer making the transition up into the Caterham 7 Championship UK this year, and immediately looks as though he's on the pace. Back in the 310R, some of the usual favourites here doing battle as they drop down the hill. Graham McDonald and Don Henshaw, I think that was side by side in the midfield. Henry Heaton though continuing to make progress. He's now challenging Harry Kramer. This is for third position as they go through the hall bends. Now you can throw it up the inside into the hairpin just here. He has a look, but he's not quite close enough. Replay of the start then from on board with James Murphy, and there is Henry Heaton going nowhere. Great reactions there from Murphy to avoid hitting him. Henry Heaton then across the start-finish line. His charge towards the front of the field continues, and that is Gordon Sawyer now that he's caught. Gordon, remember, was up there challenging John Byrne for the lead earlier on, but he's fallen back a little bit in the middle part of the race. This is a 30-minute race, remember, and around this place, that is hard work, not only on the cars and the tyres, but on the drivers too. Gordon Sawyer may be just starting to fade a bit into the second half. Henry Heaton gets a run up the hill. There is John Byrne, the race leader. You can see how far back Gordon Sawyer has fallen. Around the outside of Sawyer now goes Henry Heaton. That's a really good move. You can tell Henry Heaton is on a mission here. He'll be annoyed at himself for messing up the start. and he goes around the outside of Sawyer there into Park Corner. A risky move, but one that, on this occasion at least, has paid off. So as John Byrne continues to lead outright, back in the 310Rs, we've got some very, very close competition indeed. 105 is Greg Monks, and he is defending busily whilst also trying to chase down James Murphy up in front. And James Murphy is still your class leader in the 310Rs. We're on board with him now as he turns through the right-hander at Park Corner, gets a bit squirrely, runs out onto the grass. That almost went wrong. And just about managed to gather it together, but he'll have dirt on the tyres now as he heads through the never-ending Chris curve that tightens at the end into the right-left flick at the gooseneck, and then they plunge downhill into Mansfield. A real roller coaster ride, this circuit. Lewis Thompson there is the sort of brown-coloured car in third position, and then right behind is Matt Shepherd. So they are your top 4 drivers in the 310R element of the race. With Shepherd then as he flings the car into the mountain sectional. Mistake there from the second place man. That was a little bit wide for Greg Monks into the second half of the mountain, but there's just nowhere that you can go if you're the car behind. Even if the car in front of you makes a mistake there, it's such a short run into the Hall Bends that you don't often have time to get alongside. You don't really want to be making a move into that sequence anyway. There's limited runoff area, and if you go off, the chances are you are going to hit something pretty hard. So the leading contenders then in the 310Rs streak across the start-finish line again. Really close competition, as you would expect. Further back, wings flying here amongst some of our front runners there. And yeah, this is the battle that's going on for second position then. Stephen Nuttall is in second with the wing flapping. So he's got himself ahead of Gordon Sawyer somewhere. And Henry Heaton has now brought Gordon Sawyer back onto his tail. So this is a three-way fight for second. Stephen Nuttall, who's hit something or someone at one time or another in this race, that right front wing flailing in the air, and Henry Heaton might just see that as a sign of weakness. Closing in again through the hairpin. There's no catching John Byrne at this rate though. Byrne has gone. The question will be who joins him on the podium. Not physically, of course, because of social distancing rules, but who else is going to be lifting the trophies at the end of the race? Well, Henry Heaton looks as though he's going to be in second place, doesn't it? There is just no stopping this charge toward the front. Goes around the outside of Nuttall through Coppice. That buys him a ticket to the inside at Charlie's, and Nuttall runs wide, and Gordon Sawyer sees an opportunity to come through. They almost bang wheels. Sawyer backs out of it, and Nuttall hangs on to third place. So Heaton goes second, Nuttall down to third, and Gordon Sawyer will be a bit frustrated, I think, that he wasn't able to follow him through. John Byrne fended off that early attack from Gordon Sawyer though, and ever since he's not really looked back. He heads through Chris curve and gets sideways coming out of the gooseneck. John Byrne is such a spectacular driver to watch, and it doesn't seem to matter whether he starts at the front of the grid or the back. He is always in contention to win. Henry Heaton, arguably driver of the race though, he put himself in that position with a bad start, but he has been able to fight his way through magnificently into second place, and he'll be reasonably satisfied with that. But of course I'm sure he'll also believe that had he got a good start, he could have challenged John Byrne for the race victory. Down the hill they come then across the start-finish line. Stephen Nuttall has not given up his hopes of taking second place back though, because Henry Heaton is not escaping. They're both getting away from Gordon Sawyer slightly, but they are not separating from each other. And now with a slipstream down the Park Straight, which is anything but straight, it not only goes through that big compression in the bottom, but you can see they turn quite sharply left halfway back up the hill, and Nuttall trying to do to Heaton what Heaton did to Sawyer a few laps ago. Tries the outside line up through Chris curve. No way through though. Henry Heaton knows that move. That was his move from earlier in the race, and he knows how to defend from it as well. So Heaton stays second, but Stephen Nuttall is going to be challenging Henry, I think, right the way through to the flag. Out of Mansfield, back to the 310R action here, and some side-by-side race. In fact, that's Nuttall, excuse me, going round the outside. Yeah, that was close stuff there between Nuttall and Heaton, and Henry Heaton just able to hang on to the place. Over the hill in the 103 car there goes James Murphy, and Murphy has fallen back down the order now, hasn't he, in the 310Rs, so looks as though there's been a big shuffle around here further down the field, And James Murphy is now down to third position, I would say, as they head out of the hairpin down into barn corner. That got very tight, and that was Lewis Thompson, I think, that had got himself in front, but then had a big wobble, and they all came back through again across the start-finish line. Look how close the racing is here, and side by side for the class lead as they go up towards turn number 1 round the outside. Tries to go James Murphy, and he does. He goes back into the race lead again, ahead of Greg Monks, but any one of these 4 drivers could still win the race, and don't count out Matt Shepherd. He's the yellow car just in the background there, looking 5th position. All wide that time out of Charlie's corner for James Murphy. Greg Monks gets a run and goes straight back through again. Brilliant racing. This is proper slipstreaming action, a circuit that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see this kind of thing. But that Park Straight is a very high-speed section of the track. You can use the toe to good effect there, and add that to the mistake that was made by James Murphy, and in the end it was a reasonably easy pass for Greg Monks. He goes back into the class lead. Down through the gooseneck into Mansfield. Is there an opportunity through here on the brakes, I wonder? Oh, big lock-up. Almost ran into the back of Greg Monks there. Did Murphy? And Monks gets sideways. Murphy goes onto the grass to avoid him. They're trying their hardest to have an accident, these two, and somehow they keep avoiding making serious contact. But it seems that as soon as either of them gets in front, the pressure gets to them and they make a mistake. And, well, side by side through the mountain doesn't often work either, but it looked as though that was Matt Shepherd buying back into the action, wasn't it? He's still in 5th place, but he's closed right in on this group now because they are holding each other up. 179 is Lewis Thompson, who got back into 3rd place there. Matt Shepherd James Murphy having another go up the inside of Greg Monks into barn corner. And Greg Monks just can't escape here in that 105 car. This is a sensational battle between a huge group of cars. They come across the start-finish line, bit of traffic coming into play now as well, but the checkered flag is out because John Byrne, I think, had almost caught them looking at side by side, is it, for 2nd place. Henry Heaton just about getting through in P2. Wow, what drama, right down to the flag. Well, in 310Rs, it was Greg Monks that held on to the victory. James Murphy in 2nd, Tom Grensinger in 3rd position, and Matt Shepherd 4th. Tom Grensinger came out of nowhere there towards the end of the race.
It's kind of the nature of catering racing. I think it's all very close, neck and neck. It was a tough race. They always are. Second. I was 3rd, P3 in the start. Matt Shepherd got a bit of a poor start, unfortunately for him, and I slipped into 2nd. And then it seemed to just slot into a bit of a train for the first half of the race, and then things started getting interesting for the second half.
Well, in the overall standings, it was John Byrne that held on to the victory from pole, Henry Heaton with a brilliant fight back to 2nd, and Gordon Sawyer a solid 3rd place on his debut in the class.
This is my first time I've been to this track, so I've had 2 days testing prior to this event, and that was it. So I was really qualifying, went absolutely superb, and then through the race I made a few mistakes at the start, way too many mistakes, going deep, locking all 4 wheels, and then I decided I calmed myself down and put consistent laps in and started just slowly pull the gap, and then just kept then maintained it towards the end.
Well, it's a new season, but some things never change. John Byrne back on top here at Cadwell.